and welcome to another episode of the Crypto Hour. Today is Friday, the 17th of October, and we've gone through quite a lot of movement in the market last week. Actually, the biggest drop ever experienced in Bitcoin and in the crypto market overall. So let's go and kind of find out kind of what happened, kind of what caused that momentous, let's say, happening in the markets. So let's go and share the screen straight away. So today we talk mainly about that more than talking about other things. Okay. Just very quickly, let's go through the economic calendar. So just put things into perspective. So this was last week. I can say nothing major on Friday we were expecting in terms of economic announcements. But obviously what we realize if you listen to the news, what the biggest issue and this was the Trump announcement of issues with China. So and all this while also the government is still in shutdown mode. So that caused a kind of widespread panic in the markets, and also is connected to other issues there, just like crypto related that we'll talk about in a second. But in terms of announcements, like this week has been very, very sedate. Kind of like there weren't any big announcements. So you can see just like minor announcement. There's nothing really to be expected today either. Okay, next week, going into next week, inflation from Canada again and from the UK, inflation figures. Some manufacturing figures in Europe and for the pounds. And then probably the most important announcement for the week is the inflation, the CPI in the US. So again, nothing really major to be expected next week either. Okay, so we can look at what happened completely in isolation. Okay, now going into daily chart, this is what happened last Friday. Okay, and it's kind of like it's quite big. Okay, so Bitcoin was happily trading around 122,000 within literally like a few hours. We went down from 122,000 to all the way to 102. So we never seen something like this before, even on something that is as volatile as Bitcoin is. Put it into perspective, put it into like 5 minutes. Go back to kind of 5-minute charts. Oh, that makes you realize the severity of these moves. So first of all, so this is kind of like the announcement. Okay, the time of the announcement is pretty much like on the early hours of the market in the US. You can see price was hovering around 122,000. Okay, so during the trading day, it went down kind of like 4 or 5%, which is kind of like normal for Bitcoin. So and down from 122 to about 117. And then this happened at close. So at 10 to 10, which is, sorry, closing time is 10 p.m. for me, for kind here in the UK, which is 5 p.m. in New York. Okay, so this is a 5-minute chart. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 minutes. In half an hour, price dropped 13%. And this is on top of what happened in the rest of the day. So the total drop for the day was almost 17%. Kind of like this is kind of like extraordinary, especially here, because it's not saying that kind of if you knew anything about this, you could have taken advantage of it. Literally, look at this. In 5 minutes, price went from 112,000 to 102, and then back to about 110. So you really would have needed to be covering this, pretty much as it happened, sitting in front of the computer, and even then, you would have been you've been very unlikely to get these prices. Look at that. This is like 1 minute chart. 112. In 2 minutes to 102. In 2 minutes, we're back at 107. So these are like kind of like moves that happen in 1 minute, like 5% plus moves in 1 minute. It's kind of like unbelievable. It's something that's never happened before. Now, we know a little bit more now of what happened, which is mainly connected to a vulnerability in Binance. Now, if you are trading cryptocurrencies on a leverage account, you have to post collateral in Binance. Okay, and this collateral is generally deposited in the form of stable coins. So one of these stable coins, which is the Athena stablecoin, the USDE, has been the subject of basically of a coordinated attack. So basically, has a strong selling price against the stablecoin that caused the stablecoin that should always be the value of $1. The stablecoin actually depegged. So at one stage, it was only worth about 50 cents. And as a result, a lot of accounts were liquidated. Not only accounts that were at a loss, but even accounts that were in profit got liquidated because they didn't have enough collateral. So this is kind of difficult to understand. So even if you had kind of shorted the Bitcoin and you were kind of making profits as the price went down, you got liquidated anyway. So as an effect on even kind of maybe traders that were kind of long-term traders that bought a much lower level and were still happy to hold Bitcoin, there were really a wall of liquidation that caused this really fast price to the point that Binance, after that happened, after the weekend, Will said actually it's our fault that this happened, and they have put up like a sum of about 300 million to refund some of the traders that were affected. Okay, not traders that were kind of liquidated because the price that kind of like went below the liquidation point, but traders that were genuinely shouldn't have been affected if the price of Athena hadn't depegged. And so there has been since Friday, there has been moving on to more normal time frames. So you can see how quickly price went from 102 back to about 114, and then there has been a lot of nervousness in the market, and we've seen today actually price is dropping low and gone back again, dropping about $5,000 just in the past few hours. So what can we expect at the moment? So if we are looking at Bitcoin, what's it likely to happen? So just from a technical perspective, technical trading perspective, there are a couple of zones that where previously zones are shown that previously where there is demand waiting. One is this one here, okay, which is when the previous move that started like the move up from kind of like from the end of June to the all-time high originated. Okay, so it's this zone goes between 102,000 to around 99,000. Okay, so at the moment we are 104.5. Okay, so we can very easily go and tap this 102,000 zone, because it's where, between other things, it's where this huge drop actually stopped. So this is, at the moment, this is representing the line in the sun. Do you see how the price just literally touched this zone, and there was like a wave of purchases then that came in at that price? Okay, so we could get back to that point, and from a daily, so more like a long-term perspective, going to look at daily charts and above, we then this is the zone that I have had drawn on my charts now for months, since April, and we've gone close to touching it, but it hasn't been touched yet. So this is definitely a possibility right now, and goes from about 97.9 to about 93,000. Okay, so it's still I can say we could still have another 10% drop simply from where we are right now, before price moves, kind of like there is some buying pressure that comes back, because at this stage, what happens if you got like capital sitting on the side, even if you're not engaged in pushing the price lower, you're just sitting and waiting and thinking, okay, where can I buy at my price? Okay, so this is where I identify when I'm thinking about where there could be some buying pressure coming in. From a point of view or long-term perspective, I mean, there is no panic to be had right now. So this is the monthly chart of Bitcoin. Okay, so we are still now at a higher level than we've had at the beginning of the year. Okay, so in January, when we had a new all-time high of about 110, we still within that level, and we will not really engage in another kind of bear market until we go below 74. So there's still a long way to go. So there's no panic to be had yet. So it's just like we've seemed to at the moment have retesting some of the levels that we had from. So we see we finish exactly now where we are right now. It's where May closed. Okay, we are right now to the dollar almost. Okay, so nothing to worry about in terms of kind of like, is this the end of the bull market? I think we haven't seen anything yet in this cycle, because we're waiting for another wave of quantitative easing that will hit the market very soon. Plus, we have got the altcoin ETFs that should come to the market fairly soon. We're talking about the next few weeks. So if we move from Bitcoin now to anything else, so this is the total crypto market cap. Just move that. Total crypto market cap excluding Bitcoin. Okay, so at the moment, we are still at kind of at the top of the previous cycle's high. We are around that level there. So this is where the previous cycle topped up, really, as in terms of monthly closes, about 1.5 trillion dollars. We are now, even with the drop from this week, we are 1.4 trillion dollars. So we are still at kind of like a very elevated level. So during this cycle, we just about made a new all-time high this month. We got to about 1.75 trillion. But we still need to see the kind of increase that we have seen in kind of in Bitcoin, in terms of the 75-80% Bitcoin that would cause pretty much the rest of the market. If we had to replicate what Bitcoin has done in this cycle, around 80%, so we pretty much would double the the total to market cap. So the total crypto market cap excluding Bitcoin. In terms of the total, again, this is not a pretty sight, but it's again, it's kind of like normal in crypto terms. We have dropped from 4.27 trillion to 3.5, so 750 billion of value has been wiped out from the high that we had this earlier this month, and we are sitting now at a drop of 22% from the high. Okay, and the maximum when we touched doing kind of last week drop. Again, a total drop of 32% at its peak from trough to peak, which is, again, yeah, it's a low, but again, not that unusual. So this is what we got from December to April. We got a 61% drop. These are kind of drops within this cycle. What we had in from March 2024
the way that he is appealing
to August 2024, another 60% drop. So we've had already a 60% correction, a 61% correction. So we could pretty much with the same kind of like amount from this drop, we could drop another potentially another 25% from where we are now. And like it's just like a guessing game at the moment. And also it will depend a lot from external factors rather than internal crypto factors, because at the moment we've gone from kind of like real optimism to fear, kind of the fear and greed. We've gone from greed to fear in the index, and we can see it in here. So the kind of things that we look at, by the way, we keep looking at the realized price is now over 55,000, and again, pretty much you can take it as a sort of approximation of the floor or the bear market. But also what I wanted to show, what is that? Where is the fear and greed index? Probably on here. Oh yeah. So you can see now it's quite a low level. So we were at kind of like in the red zone before this happened, kind of in the greed phase, not extreme greed, but doing kind of the greed area. Now we're going back to between fear and extreme fear. Okay, which is what happens when these sort of drops start to happen in the market. So just a second. Just give me a second, guys. Okay. So, and the last thing that we wanted to look at as well is the combining the two things with the net unrealized profit and loss, the NUPL chart. As you can see now, it's gone this week like now below 50. Remember the kind of like the euphoria phase, which is the most dangerous phase that normally precedes. It indicates kind of the top of the bull market. It's above 75. Now we dropped into below 50. So we still kind of like there is a lot of room, a lot of upside room yet that hasn't been touched. Interesting thing to see that it's now if we look at it together with the price is now to kind of move below below the market price, which is it's a different scale, but it's an interesting visual kind of idea of where things could move to. Okay, so as you can see, the interesting thing though to see is that the Bitcoin dominance within all this panic hasn't really moved very much. So obviously it spiked during the crisis as we've seen a lot of altcoins dropped 60-70% within, let's say, half an hour, and it's now gone back to normal levels. So we are around the 60% Bitcoin dominance, still well within well within the range, the kind of the market movements that we are seeing so far. Okay, now if we ignore that, that candle, because it's kind of like it's not a normal market activity candle. It's just like really more like of a coordinated attack. But in any case, so we see the relationship between Bitcoin and the altcoin hasn't really changed very much doing all this problem. So when you can see that it was like 59%, now it's about 60%, so it's moved about 1%. Okay, so it hasn't really changed that much. But you can see today, you can see the red figures. Like Bitcoin today is dropped, where are we? 3%. Okay. And when you look at the smaller coins, which are kind of the others and kind of excluding the top 10, you're looking at 6% drop today. So when there is kind of like fear in the market, then obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum hold up better than the smaller coins, because they got a lot more power and a lot more institutional investing as well in those coins. So the one thing that's interesting to see where the opportunities may lie, and we can look at that. Some of the coins are included in here, and we see here what kind of moves really we're looking at from the beginning of this cycle. So we still even with the drop that we had last week, we still haven't taken out the low or the previous correction. Okay, so it's still, so these expectations are, we are still in an uptrend. So the expectation now, kind of in terms of probability, is that we're going to make a new high, which becomes more and more interesting because now from this level, so if you were to put money in now at 235 billion, I will say this is almost, for me, kind of like a low-hanging fruit in a way, because it could double up just to get back to what it was like in, if just literally at the beginning of 2025. Okay, so we're not talking about doing anything amazing, simply just getting back to where it was a few months ago, and even going back to where it was in, kind of like towards the end of September would be like a 50% 40% increase. So there is an opportunity there if you are brave enough to to put some of your funds to it. Okay, other things that we can look at as well. You can look at the so this is again under development in a way because it's it's still happening as we speak. But in terms of outflows, so this shows you where the panic is coming from. Okay, in the sense that look at what it was like last week. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so these five numbers. So there's 2 billion, 2.5 billion. There was new capital into the crypto ETFs, the Bitcoin ETFs, and even with all this panic selling that we had this week, we're still talking about 500, 600, 900, 800. So 800 million so far. So if you look at the 2 weeks combined, we're still 1.7 billion up in terms of institutional money coming into Bitcoin. So really, when you are when you're looking at these sort of charts, for Bitcoin, so we're thinking, where is the selling coming from? And a lot of it is from, I would say, outside of the ETFs. I know the ETFs only represent, kind of like 5% of Bitcoins, the number of Bitcoins in circulation. But so you can take it as an approximation for institutional money. So really, this is like fear that's hitting the market, which means that we got to look at, what's happening to the behavior of the big buyers of Bitcoin, or the ones that own like 10 Bitcoins and above. So if we look at where was that chart? So if you look at, so these are kind of the age bands, in Bitcoins, all these different lines. So if you look at which age bands are going down, okay, so we are looking at the relatively like new holders of Bitcoin. So coins they are moved the last time, kind of like 1 month, 3 months ago, where the ones that are still, and there is this also this metric, which is which one is it? So there is the 12 to 18 months. So we're talking about kind of like all buyers anyway in this cycle that are actually selling a little bit of the profits, but look at some of the ones that are going up. So the blue line is like 18 months to 2 years, and they are kind of they're holding the Bitcoins and buying more. Okay, and so a lot of the selling pressure is coming from kind of very young purchasers, or like what is called like the weak hands in Bitcoin. So let's have a look at the realized cap. So let's have a look. Who's growing in here? We can only go down. Let's have a look at something else. Okay. So if you look at any of those bands, what do you see? Kind of since April, there is something that is really obvious at a glance is that this yellow band is getting bigger. Okay, so this is kind of like 6 months to 12 months. That is actually holding a bigger percentage of Bitcoin altogether. And also, like, this is the latest of 1 month to 3 months. So there is all these age bands now that have been accumulated Bitcoin. And this is where also, because they've been accumulating, there's also where the selling pressure may be coming from. And in terms of, let's say, well, where do we see the activity? No, anyway, I will need to go and find and show you next time. So what I wanted to show you, kind of like a chart, is showing the actual number of long-term holders are actually getting bigger. So if the kind of the ages that you want to look at is the kind of 6 months and beyond. You know, those numbers have been getting progressively larger. If you go if you look at the bottom, so up to the yellow one. So the yellow one and below is 6 months, 6 months and above. Okay, so where if you look at that, so people that are happy to hold Bitcoin for kind of like a long over 6 months at the very least. Okay, so we've gone from visually, I would say kind of like almost like doubled in terms of the amount of Bitcoin held. So as you can see, the longer term holders are actually gaining in terms of percentage over the overall Bitcoin held in lower duration, of people that buy them and sell them to make a quick profit in a short amount of time. Okay, let me stop this now. So I say there's mostly like talking about what we are seeing and what we can go to from now on. It is kind of like wasn't this kind of quick drop wasn't expected at all. So there's a combination of also the announcement of Trump, but not so much that it's Trump's that caused all this. So obviously there was like an intention to push the price lower. The only thing that when there is a lot of capital ready to bet on a price drop, they just wait for a catalyst. So whenever there's an excuse, so they can justify and the narrative they want to invest in, then they take action. So it'd be interesting to know, this coordinated attack, to understand exactly where it came from, because it's not something of an isolated player or an isolated trader that could have caused this. So this is more like a really coordinated at nations level that could have caused this sort of drop. What happens kind of like in the next 6 months, we can all kind of have an idea that when the liquidity hits the market, again, talk about lowering interest rates, fiscal stimulus that is coming as well for the US. So basically more money hitting the market. That's when the prices really will grow. In the short term, guys, this is like the Wild West at the moment. They're really the Wild West. So we go back, I say, to watch those levels that I've indicated in the chart. It could be it could be tapped today, or there could be just a turnaround and for no reason whatsoever. For simply at the end of the day, it's Friday, and if sellers, kind of like the bears in the market, see that there isn't enough conviction, so the price kind of like has a lot of finds a floor and there's a lot of resistance, they might not want to keep their positions open over the weekend in case there is like a turnaround in price and they have to lose some of the profits that they made. So let's see what happens. So at the moment we are about 105 for Bitcoin. Everything else obviously connected to what Bitcoin does, and we'll at the moment we can only really sit at the window and see what happens. What I'm saying is that if you don't already invest in cryptocurrencies, this will not be a bad time to start getting ready to buy some if you want to buy, because at the moment everything is available at a deep discount. It may not last very long. It could get it can always get lower. That can happen, but it's it's very probable that from these levels we're going to see a move up that would make a serious amount of profit for most proper projects. They have got some backbone. Okay, so have a look. Look at the some of the coins that you'd be interested in, and have a look at their price performance over the last week compared to how they've done from the beginning of the year, and you can get an idea of potential of growth in simply like a few weeks time. Okay, let's see if there are any questions from anybody. Anybody there? Anybody wants to go on, Eric?
Luca, don't you think that this was a manipulation from the Trump family?
No idea.
Hmm.
No idea. So that's what the kind of was being said. But the Trump family on its own could not have managed that. So there are seriously there's been, because it's a lot of the issues have been connected to a specific stablecoin in Binance, because most of the other stablecoins have like weathered the storm without any problem, but there's one particular stablecoin that has caused this to happen, because it's basically almost like you have collateral when you're trading a leverage account. If your collateral all of a sudden disappears, the exchange has got no choice but to liquidate the account, because they don't want to incur any losses themselves. So there's been somebody that's been planning this, for this to happen, because otherwise we will never have got to 102,000. We would have stopped around 110, 115, because there was considerable resistance even later at around 110,000. So price would probably have stopped there, the price drop, even with Trump's announcement. So I got no idea exactly who's behind this, but there was a concerted effort to push it down.
What stablecoin was it, and whose stablecoin is it?
The USDE. So this is the Athena stablecoin. I'd say it's one of the stablecoins that's available on Binance. So obviously they have spotted a vulnerability in there, and they started selling everything against the stablecoin to basically to cause it to depeg. But it's we'll see what happens. Coming to other things, Jonathan, any updates on the midnight drop? I've seen some positive changes. I finally managed to claim my Bitcoin allocation through Ledger. So
good, well done.
so finally something has been put to work. Anything else that you can report?
The extension is coming to an end, so we've got another couple of days, I think, before that winds up. And yeah, there are a few people still scrubbing to make claims. I'm helping out. So if you are in the position where you have any Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana that you haven't claimed or checked your eligibility, or Cardano, obviously, if you haven't checked your eligibility for night tokens, then that's still an option for you. The scavenger phase is coming up in a few days' time, and yeah, so it's a little bit more I've heard about it from Charles himself. Was that it's a proof of work type scavenger, so you will be running software on your computer that will be using your CPU to check your eligibility for mining these tokens. I don't imagine it'll be heavy amount of CPU usage, but it'll be a 30-day period where you'll spend some electricity on your CPU and hopefully come out with some tokens at the end of it. And everybody who participates will have the same likelihood of outcome. So yeah, you won't have particularly, you won't have massive miners coming in and stealing all the thunder. So it should be fairly fair a system to get involved in if you wanted to play.
Excellent. So the details should be on the Glacier Drop, I suppose, website, yeah?
Yeah, just on midnight.gd.
Yeah.
And all the details will be there.
Yeah, if you're interested in claiming some Midnight tokens, say even if you don't own any of the blockchain tokens they are associated with the drop, I'd say just keep watching the midnight.gd website. In a few days should be published on how you can do that, and and do what Jonathan was saying. Jonathan, actually, if there are no other questions, I just wonder if you could cover briefly, because I've had a few questions of people that were trying to then make the claim manually. So physically, when you get to the and there seem to be some issues with the signing phase, of the claim. Could you do a quick run through on what you do when you do a manual claim, and how you make sure that you manage to complete it, maybe?
Yeah, sure. So the trickiest part is if you have to do a manual claim. So if you can, if at all possible, use a browser wallet to connect to it, then you're going to have more success. So this initial option browser wallet is always going to be easiest because it manages that signing process, which is the most complex part. So your MetaMask or Cardano wallet, Lace, Yoroi, Eternal, they're the best ones to use if you possibly can. If you have a hardware wallet, a Ledger or a Trezor, and you can connect those through a browser wallet as well, I think that's again the easiest route. So if you've got MetaMask, but you're using a Ledger or a Keystone or Trezor through it, then that's a good way of participating. And you can use other wallets like Rabi and so on and so forth for EVM type chains. Hardware wallet, again, you're relying on the hardware manufacturer's bits of software to be able to talk to this platform. And there's been issues over the duration, but I think they're pretty much resolved now. So that should be a straightforward route to go through as well. Ledger or Trezor are the two main players. That's good to go. If you do need to go manually, then it gets quite a bit more complicated. So this is where the issue tends to lie. Do I have an address to check? Ethereum address. So what's on there? Nothing on there. So the sort of the best way to do it, if you have an address you want to check eligibility for, just to see whether it's worth you pursuing, is to come in, find your network, and If you don't have any browser wallets or anything like that, you just want to check your eligibility first. Go in the want address manually, continue, and then paste in your Bitcoin address, or whatever address it is. If you then show that you do have NIKE tokens eligible to claim, then the next process is to figure out how to get that sign-in request done. And working with someone at the moment who's got Bitcoin on Exodus, which is a self-sovereign wallet. So you actually have control of your private keys, but there's no way to connect Exodus wallet to Midnight Claim platform. So your best way of doing it is to actually, unfortunately, and probably, unless you've got a lot to claim, I wouldn't even bother trying this route. You have to export your private keys from Exodus and then import that into a browser wallet. So that's the only way to do it for Exodus users, for example. If you have I don't know what other Bitcoin wallets there are, but if you have a mechanism within that wallet for carrying out a manual signing, then that's your option if you're going to do it manually. So you find out you're eligible, you need to figure out how to sign a message using your wallet. So if I show you what the mechanism looks like in Eternal Wallet, which is a Cardano wallet, you'll be looking for options that look a bit like this. So buried under the settings within Eternal Wallet, you've got a sign data option. So you'll be looking for language in similar sort of vein to that. Oops. And then you'll be taking your receive address from your wallet. So that will be your Bitcoin receive address. Put it into the address field. The payload appears on that final screen of the claim. It will say star and then a string of characters, and that's the unique message to you, your Bitcoin address, your Solana address, allocated to the Glacier drop. Take that message, copy and paste it back into the signing section, the data to sign in this browser, in this wallet. It's called payload, and then you'll be signing with your keys for that wallet. So the public key is the public key for your wallet. So in Bitcoin and so on and so forth, you'll have either a seed phrase which will get you into your wallet, and that's called a mnemonic, or you'll have a private key pair, which is a public part and a private part. If you can get hold of those, which is what you'll be exporting from Exodus, for example, then you can use those to sign this key, private part, and public part, and then click sign, and it will actually produce a text string off the back of that you can paste back into the Midnight Claim form. So it's convoluted, it's a little tricky, it's a little nerdy, it is doable. But yeah, check your eligibility to claim first, and then if you find you do have some and it's a decent amount, then you can start to go through the pain of wrestling with technology. I have a video for anybody who wants to do it through a command line interface, and you're a Cardano user, but I don't have any of the more in-depth videos on Bitcoin or Solana or Ethereum, unfortunately.
Yeah. Jonathan, as I was saying, so you were saying there's only a couple of days left now to to make these claims. I think on the 20th is the expiry, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I would say is that if any of you that are on this call want to want some help to complete your claim, then please go and join Jonathan's call that starts shortly after we finish in a few minutes. So Jonathan, if you don't mind posting your link, the link to your call, because again, you only got a couple of days left, so you either do it now or just forget about it. So completely up to you. But if you haven't made your claim and you still want to make it, remind you, go to the midnight.gd website, and it shows you all the blockchains that are entitled to make a claim. So as long as you add $100 worth of each one of these coins in your own wallet, not on an exchange, but in your own wallet on the 11th of June, you would be entitled to some free midnight tokens drop. Okay, so if you want some help dealing with that process, join Jonathan's Cardano Q&A session. Because yeah, that would be, I imagine that would be the last chance there would be somebody that would need some help like that. Yeah. So anybody has anything else they want to share, or a question they want to ask? It's like 3 minutes to 10, so I'll need to be to leave straight away because I've got another call starting. So anybody has any question? No? Okay, so then I will wish everybody a good weekend. Would be interesting. I mean, there's a lot going on in crypto right now. So obviously, if you're invested, you would be wanting to follow. If you are invested, or if you're thinking of investing in crypto, definitely pay some attention this weekend, because it could either mean that you have to take some action either way. Whether to protect or to or to take the opportunity, take the chance and buy some. Okay, so I will see you again next week, and we'll look again at this bloodbath, and by then we should have a lot better ideas of why everything happened and what's going to happen next. Okay, so have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and I will see you again next week.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.